It's been 3 years since we last saw Fox's answer to the Harry Potter franchise, and while in the past it may have been normal to have 2 or 3 years between installments, companies like Marvel have kind of changed the landscape of franchises to the point where fans now essentially expect a film every single year, if not as often as every 6 months, at least in the case of the Marvel movies. And with the Hogwarts Express having shut down in 2011, and the Cullens now hopefully fading into obscurity, can the Son of Poseidon fill that cross-generational niche that was once held by the boy wizard? And before people start commenting, no, The Hunger Games is not the next Harry Potter. I understand you don't like the comparisons being made to Twilight, but really, the demographic appeal of The Hunger Games isn't as broad as Harry Potter. It's not quite as broad as Twilight per se, but it has a little more in common with Twilight than it does with Harry Potter in terms of demographic appeal. And a lot of people saying, stop comparing it. Look, those are successful franchises. The comparisons are going to be made. Get over it. Now let's start this episode of Ronnie's Reviews before we go on an even longer tangent. Unlike the other sequels I've been taking a look at over the past few months, I actually have seen the previous film in this franchise. Granted, that was during its theatrical run when I was still in high school. So yeah, it's been a while and my memory of the film may be a tad hazy. However, what I can say is that this film is slightly better than The Lightning Thief. Slightly, at least based on my memory of The Lightning Thief. The first thing is that the gods and locations don't call nearly as much attention to themselves as they did in the previous film. Everything's a lot more streamlined, a lot more cut down. There's not as many, well, filler gods and jokes and everything. Although there are still some jabs and pop culture references, they're a lot more subdued this time around, although the overabundance of them did get on my nerves a little bit. While I understand that may have been a facet of the original novels by Rick Riordan, as a film, well, it was kind of stupid. It's kind of the same strategy that a lot of kids' films that were trying to copy Disney had ever since Aladdin. It's like, oh yeah, we gotta put pop culture references, and it just made the whole thing feel kind of dated. Another thing this film has over the previous one is that, well, the acting's improved, mostly because a lot of the actors that are involved in this film had the chance to go out and do other films during the time between The Lightning Thief and Sea of Monsters, and that really shows in a lot of their performances that they've just, in general, have gotten a lot better. There were a few things that bothered me while I was watching this film. The first was the amount of 3D paneling. Well, I know a lot of people may say, you're just one of those people that doesn't like 3D and thinks all films should be in 2D. No, 3D pandering can work if it's done right, and this film didn't really do it right. It had the same problem that Oz the Great and Powerful had, where a lot of the things that were used for 3D pandering in situations that are supposed to be fairly realistic were generated using CGI. I mean, when they destroyed the mechanical bull and the gears all flying toward the viewer, that one I was a little more forgivable. I mean, I figured, oh, well, they're doing that, but it's not as weird. But then you get little things that they try to do, like the CGI water drops on the camera to imply death. They're trying a little too hard, it was a little too cheesy and felt unnecessary to me. Another thing that bothered me throughout the film was that the fact that the film tried too hard with some of its characterization. Granted, while a lot of the stuff has been reduced compared to the previous film in order to make things more streamlined, well, some of the characterization was a little messy. This is mostly observed with the character of Tyson, who's basically Percy's Cyclopean half-brother. And, well, I understand you're trying to make him sort of the clumsy comic relief, and some of the antics do work, but some of the other antics they have Tyson get into don't really have a payoff. I mean, for example, when they're trying to sneak out of the camp or sneak onto the main bad guy's ship, he has like the noisiest backpack ever, but not once do we ever see it cause any trouble. Not once do we ever see it actually lead to them getting caught or anything. Now, I understand that could be a subtle thing that, oh yeah, well, it was just a subtle thing and they got caught by other things, but really, why introduce that element in a film if you're not really going to have a payoff for it? The final thing that bothered me about this film, which seems to be the case of a lot of films, is that they stumble at the third act. I understand, I guess it's just a case of, hey, they've already watched this far, they'll watch for the ending, but I can't really say all that much, but they try to create some last-minute tension, but the tension is pretty much easily dissolved by its own internal logic, and so it just made the whole scene feel like padding. And it's not helped by the fact that the film also tries to spell everything out for the audience. And I mean, there's a way you can do that right, but in the case of this film, they had like this closing narration that was supposed to spell out a lot of different things that came across really as a desperate sequel hook. That's really what it felt like, and I don't know what it is about films and having a very iffy third act, but with this film, it's just a case that I guess the writers were just so close to the end of the script that they just decided to just kind of go, we don't care. If they watch this far anyway, we've already got the money. Overall, while the film does stumble in a few places, I still find myself being entertained. Compared to The Lightning Thief, at least compared to my memory of The Lightning Thief, the stakes are a lot higher, the story flows a lot more smoothly, and the characters feel a tad more developed, mostly because of the higher quality performances we're given. However, I don't recommend seeing this film in 3D because the film doesn't really boast that much experience value. I mean, some of the more scenic 3D shots they try to give us are too dark, and so the 3D doesn't really add all that much because it just makes the stuff even a little bit darker. Even if they've fixed that over the course of the technology's development, you're better off saving yourself the $2 to $3 surcharge and just seeing it in 2D. Despite that, I feel it's a good adventure film that'll definitely scratch the itch of the Harry Potter crowd if they're willing to give it a chance. All that said, on my personal scale, I give Percy Jackson's Sea of Monsters a 4 out of 5. So that's it for this episode of Romney's Reviews. I know I said I wasn't going to have an episode this week, but like I said, if I got into an advanced screening, I would put up an episode. And well, Percy Jackson comes out on August 7th, so yeah. As for next week, well, it's going to be another set of 2 reviews. The first review coming up will be We're the Millers. Not really looking forward to it. I'll see you all next week.